You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I'm Nathalie Dorémieux.
and we're going to get right into it. Tell us, what is your hot take?
So my hot take is to be consistently in action. Like it's making decision faster. And that's the quickest path to figuring out what works and what doesn't. There is nothing worse than sitting on something on a decision. And the problem is going to be the same tomorrow.
I think that this is something that everybody needs to hear, especially in the way that our world is changing so quickly. Like the things that you used to be able to really think through and take your time on and build up a strategy, and it had multi layers and there was layers and layers of approval and thought process and all of that. Like those days are gone. And for better or for worse, they are gone. So how do we, one, start to build up the reflex for action, and two, are there any things that we need to consider as we do this so we don't end up in just a cycle of failure because we're not thinking it through? We're just like shooting from the hip.
Yeah. So I think that, I mean, you're totally right. With things changing, AI coming up, we know we have, to move fast because things change so fast. So the days where it takes you 6 months to create a program or anything, those are gone. In 6 months, the things have changed, right? So the idea is really to be structured when we do this. And for people that are very woo-woo and are not like super organized, they basically need to get help. Otherwise, they are always into not taking action, but into the thinking mode. So
Yep.
you have to get into more of an interactive way of doing things. And so having a plan, turning the plan into tasks and basically run things like experiments. These are the facts. This is what I want to measure. This is what I'm expecting. And I'm going to do this and then just move from there. I think it just needs a bit more structure in terms of what you're doing and just breaking it down into, sprints, like 2 week sprints.
I think to your point of like, if you are a person who is a big idea, big thinker type of a person, getting help is the number one tip that I agree with because I am one of those people, right? I love like the thrill of solving a problem and saying, okay, there's a problem, here's the solution, let me try a bunch of things. And I do really well at the experimenting phase where I'm just trying and I'm just trying and I'm just trying. The problem that I always have is that next step where it's like, okay, now the problem has been solved. Now we're just like running the actions, running the tasks, right? We're just going forward with the thing we've already fixed. I am so bored at that point because I'm like, no, 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 we've solved the problem. I can go move on to the next thing that,
Yeah.
excites me. So I've worked with incredible people before, though, who have been able to say, okay, cool, you've solved this problem. Now we're going to take it and we'll take care of it. You go do something different now because that they get their joy in the process where I get just absolute suffering in
Yeah,
that experience.
exactly. And I think you touched on something that's really important here is we are all wired differently. So making sure that you keep operating in your unique brilliance and
Yeah.
not try to do things that you are not wired to do. You would do a terrible job at it. It would suck your energy. You'd procrastinate. So stay in your zone of brilliance and then get some help, on the other pieces of business that need to be done, but they should not be done by you.
Yeah, and it's hard too because especially when if you're starting something for the first
Yeah.
time, if you're not an established business, if you're going out and building your own thing for the first time,
Yeah.
that can be really difficult to say, "Okay, I know I'm not the best at this, so am I ready to take the risk of bringing someone else into it?"
Exactly. And that's why these niches are seasons. At the start, you either have money or you have time,
Yeah.
right? So if you have money, you hire it out, you get a team, or you have time and you figure it out and you do what you can, knowing that it's a season in the business. It's not going to be forever. But you know why you're doing it? You're doing it because it needs to get done. If you don't do it, you can't hire, doesn't get done, business doesn't move, right? So it gives you fully that motivation for that short period of time to do it yourself, even if it's not done the best way. But like there are ways, to be your best, doing it the time of the day where you have the most energy, right? Do things right before that put you in that bubble of like, oh, I can accomplish anything. And so that's basically the idea, right? It's got to get done by someone.
Yeah. When you're thinking about how we do this take action thing. And one of the things I've been talking about on the show lately is this concept of like building in public, where you're going out and you're trying things out and experimenting live and in public rather than, the way we used to do it was in a conference room with a whiteboard and we're all kind of thinking. Now people are almost whiteboarding live with their potential customers. How do we build this growth and start to turn it into something that's actionable and shed the fear of doing something either one, publicly embarrassing and embarrassing ourselves, or two, tipping off somebody else who might be a competitor to us?
Yeah. So, couple of things on that. One, the fear of what people would say. I would say if you have that fear, you'll probably never succeed because we all have the fear, but we do it anyway. So your why you're doing it needs to be bigger than the fear of making a fool of yourself.
Mm.
Just also know that everybody's looking at their own belly button. We say in French means we look at our own stuff.
Yeah.
And so people don't really care. They don't care as much. They don't see as much as what we think they are. So that's number one. And then number two, I can't remember what was your number two. The other thing,
The fear of if somebody like, okay, so if I have this really cool idea and I'm
oh,
out in public
is it
talking about it and
stolen?
somebody steals it.
Okay. So everything out there has pretty much been done. It's the way you are going to do it. So the more
Mm.
you inject you, nobody can replace you. So that's why you need to show your personality and your vision and what you stand for as much as possible, because that nobody can replace. Nobody can be you. A lot of people can teach you many things. Nobody can teach it like you. So have your own method, your own framework, your own way of doing things. Sure, people copy, but there is enough work for everybody. So stay in your lane and don't, not show what your plan is in fear that people would steal,
Mhm.
because you are putting too much importance on these people versus people that actually need you.
What do you think is the biggest blind spot that people have when they're thinking about if they're hearing what we're saying and they're saying, "Okay, I'm ready to start taking action." What is their biggest blind spot in that process?
It's probably that they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know that. See what I mean? So there is this thing where when we have an expertise, we have knowledge. We know how to do things. Maybe we've helped people in a certain capacity, on this, and we think we know what people want. And we're like, no, I know what they want. No, you might know what they need, but you don't know what they want. And they forget that they actually need the audience
Hmm.
to figure things out. So to your point where you were saying, let's co-create. I call it co-create, collaborating, telling people what you're up to and making sure that you create something that works for them and for you. I mean, if you do this, when you think about it, you can't fail, because you can't connect with these people, you don't create. So you don't create something that doesn't sell, right? By definition. And really the idea is to make sure that you involve them, in that process, and you figure out what word are they using? Where are they at? You need to meet them where they're at. And that's very often where um, people miss the mark. There's still a gap.
When you talk about, like not knowing what you don't know, right? And it's that real paradox of you don't know that you don't know, so therefore how could you ever possibly know to go look for something
Yeah.
like to get out of this like don't knowing
Yeah.
loop? Are there resources out there that can help us like stretch our minds or figure out what we don't know or go down that path? Or is it really just you luck out of this not knowing loop?
Yeah. So I think, the best way that I found is to not stay in isolation. If you surround yourself with other people that are doing the same thing, they're going to talk about, you're going to meet people that are just a little bit ahead of you, and they might have seen things. Same thing, you can help somebody that is just getting started and maybe you're 6 months ahead. So, um, I mean, once you understand that, oh my gosh, I didn't know that, then maybe you start to be a bit more on the lookout for things and realizing that you might have the expertise, you might be like the bone of the business. There are so many other things that need to be put in place for this to work, right? And you don't know what they are, right? I mean, we kind of have an idea. We need some marketing, we need some sales, but like it's just being curious and being and surrounding yourself, not staying in isolation and doing this on your own because you're going to miss out on a bunch of things.
Well, and not only I completely agree with that, and I feel like post-COVID, we all got real comfortable in our houses, right? Like, we're
Yes.
doing this podcast from halfway across the world where I'm in Iowa and you're in the south of France, and that's a great benefit that we all kind of accelerated towards, in this virtual world, but there really is something special about, 1, going out and connecting with other people, but I also think 2, connecting with people who have nothing in common with you, seemingly,
Mhm.
because some of my best ideas have come from conversations with people who had nothing they knew nothing about my business, nothing about my expertise, I knew nothing about theirs, so it was a true, like a true learning experience because I knew nothing, I was a total novice at what they were the best in the world at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes both ways. It's nice to be surrounded by other people like in your field or doing something similar, but just being in a group with people like maybe you have a brick and mortar business or, something totally different than what we might be doing online has so much benefit because you like things like they are totally different level when it comes to having a team, or
Yeah,
because they have like an actual store, so they need to have employees, and they go through churn and having to fire people and all these things much faster than we might have to, So it's things that any business might encounter at some point, needs to know, needs to be aware of. But it's nice to see different angles, different way of thinking, just because we have very different business models.
you mentioned earlier the idea of experiments, right? So when I think of the word experiment, I think of, like the scientific method and the things that we learned in school and like going through this process of having a hypothesis or something you think and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
finding ways to test it. But take us through that. Like if I'm hearing this podcast and I want to start experimenting with an idea that I have or taking action, what do those steps look like and how do I make sure that I'm doing it in a way that best serves the reality, the truth that I'm seeking, and not necessarily the bias that I have for what I want to see in those
Yeah,
experiments.
absolutely. And always say numbers don't lie. So you need to have metrics, right? To have an idea. And actually, that's a great example is I'm going to drink my own Kool-Aid, like we said, because I'm running an experiment, that I'm going to today or tomorrow that I'm starting. So I'll tell you exactly what that could look like. Say you want to run a program, but you're not exactly sure if people want it, and if even your existing audience wants it, right? The experiment could be I'm going to give myself 2 weeks to create an interest list and get 20 people to raise their hand and say, I'm interested, right? So that's my metric is going to be how many people on my interest list. So what you do is you send the experiment is like, okay, I'm going to send an email to my audience and say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. This is what it is for. This is the problem it's going to solve. I don't know yet when it's going to come out, how much it's going to cost, but this is what I'm thinking. Is that something you'd be interested in? If yes, just click the link so I know, right? So already when you do this, you're going to have a first metric, which is the clicks, right? Are
Mhm.
people actually clicking to raise their hand? Now, what that gives you is a very clear sign that you cannot ignore, like, are the people clicking or not clicking? If nobody's
Right.
clicking and you thought that you had an idea that they might be interested in, sounds like, could be the wording, but that sounds like it's not. So, of course, you don't just do one email. Actually, I'm doing three. The second one could be something like why you're doing it. You know how people love more why you do things than the actual thing. So I would
Yeah.
tell them honestly why I'm creating this thing. And it's all about experimenting and just getting people into action, and not waiting for AI, how it's gonna go. So that's basically the idea. That's a quick, tangible example. What is a goal? I'm trying to build an interest list of 50 people. And I think I could get that from my list. What do I need to do? I'm going to send a series of email. I'm going to track opens and things like that. And at the end of the experiments, at the end of the 2 weeks, you're like, okay, what was my open rate? How many people did sign up? And that gives you information.
How do you determine what is a reasonable success metric? Because you said like 20, that you're gonna get 20 on your success on your list. How do you make sure that your number is a good indicator that you have a real idea here, but not so unrealistic that you're gonna be disappointed? So for example, I've worked with people before who will run a 2-week experiment, and then if they didn't make $100,000 in new business in that 2-week experiment, that
Oh,
this is an absolute failure and we have to try something, and then they completely pivot their strategy a different direction. And, how do we set success metrics that are based in reality for
yeah.
what actually is successful?
Yeah. So actually, there are two things that the number needs to do. One, it needs to be realistic. So if you have a list of 500 people and you think that half of them are going to raise their hand, no, they're not. Okay.
Yes,
No, they're
true.
not. I'm telling you right now. And if you say, oh, I need from 500, I need 200 to raise their hand and I need 150 to buy. And then you're like, and my program is 1,000. So it's going to be 150,000 I'm making. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah.
Right. So one is that, is that realistic? And two, it needs to be a number that excites you and does not stress you. What I'm talking about here is that, one of my things is membership sites and memberships. We want to get as many people as possible. But when you launch the first time, you don't.
Yeah.
You want less people, but you want the right people because you want people that are going to give you feedback that you actually want, not from the wrong people, right? And it's going to be easier to manage. So you want to find the number that excites you. I'm like, oh, I'd be happy with that, where you can get enough data, right? Because it's not about the money when you first launch. It's about getting the right people and being able to have that co-creation and get enough feedback that you can create something that's truly amazing for them and for you. So it's a subjective number, but it needs to take into account your existing list. But don't count on doing Facebook ads and then things like that because those people are too cold. Like we're talking about our existing audience, right? The people that kind of know you already. And the minute you say, I want to do something, they might jump on it, right? So those are the two things, realistic and a number that excites you more than it scares you. Like,
I love too that you say a number that excites you. Because let's be honest, like, we all have a million things that we could be doing. Like, I've got 2 little kids, I've got a business, I've got a husband, like, I have more than enough things that I could be doing, and if it doesn't excite me, then, like, why are we doing it? Why are we living this life if we don't have that excitement?
exactly, absolutely. And that's something that like I tell people all the time, like I'll tell this story, I used to have a program, it's called First Members, and it's to help people get their first members in a membership. I don't run it anymore, but because it turned into a one-on-one. Now I was helping everybody one-on-one. But there were like two people in the course, they ended up not launching a membership. And that was because the excitement was not there. And I was telling them,
Yeah.
okay, I can help you. But when you talk about it, I don't see you getting excited. And if you're not, how do you expect people to be? Excitement is when we are okay to make mistakes because we want to keep moving forward because we want to see the other side.
Yeah.
That's where we don't procrastinate because we are like, I don't know if I'm the right person for this. I don't know if it will work. When you do all these things, you're not in excitement. You're like in resistance and nothing good happens, in
And
that.
if you don't have that level of excitement, you are going to hit a hurdle, right? It's going to happen no matter
Oh,
what you're trying to do. Like, uh, there was one time where I went through a phase where I was like, "Oh, I'll start making, like, social media videos and I'll put clips on TikTok." And then, I started to actually get quite a bit of traction there. And then, like, people were commenting and, like, stuff, and I hated it all of the sudden. I was like, "I don't want, like, I discovered that my excitement of making the video did not outweigh my feeling of like having people in it. And I realized like, oh, this content's just for me. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
And so like understanding where that hurdle or where that dip is going to come or where, the success takes time. I started this podcast over a year ago. It took me probably a year to feel any level of traction
Oh,
and to
God.
feel like anyone was listening to this damn thing. And then all of a sudden I started getting messages from people who were loving the show and my listens started to shoot up. But if I would have quit after those first, God, like 40 episodes almost, I would have been done before I found this amazing thing that's changed my business entirely and
Yeah.
my perspective on life. But it took probably a full year to see any level of success.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, absolutely. That's they call it great, whatever that is, but like that's what keeps you going. It's when you know deep down this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's amazing the strengths that we can find. Yeah.
Considering the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else do we need to be listening to?
Okay, so this is the perfect place to say this because as you were talking, I was thinking about the person that helped me see who I was and that I was not flawed, that I was not broken. Her name is Fabienne Fredrickson, and she runs Bold Heart. And that's the only of the many programs that I've done that really made me do a work on myself, my personality, showing that I was not broken just because I couldn't. I'm a to-do list. I'm not the entrepreneur type of thing. So when you rank on the Colby and the Strengths Finder and all these things, like, well, no, you should be an operator. You should not be, your own boss, right? And she made me see that I was not broken. I just needed to know where I can operate really well and get support for that.
And if someone is loving this conversation, they want to hear more from you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so they can find me at themembershiplab.com/Alisa, and I will have something there for them that's truly unique to them.
I love that. We'll make sure that we drop that link in the show notes. And if you're looking for me, you can also find me on LinkedIn. You search Alyssa Nolte. And if you find the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. I also write on Substack under Alyssa Likes to Talk. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I loved this conversation. I think more of us need to start taking action and taking risk and running experiments and committing to the idea that, hey, it might not work out right away. It might not work out ever, but we will never know unless we put down our pen, step away from the whiteboard, and try. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Alisa.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.